Hello and welcome to everybody watching at home, and welcome to Sam back to the channel. We are today going to be talking about the election that's coming up in the UK for the leadership of the country. Party manifestos were released this week, and the Tory manifesto was only released today, but the Labour manifesto has got lots of interesting stuff that we're going to talk about today, and just have a little bit of a chat about the election in general. I think actually the manifestos are a little bit overstated in their importance, because they spend a lot of time writing them. It's like 100 pages long for each of them, and really people are mostly vote for like the figurehead that they like. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you've got voters who have a party who they're committed to. Never Tories, never Labour, something like that. But for those on the fence people, I think who is at the head of the party actually makes a big difference. And as much as I hate Jeremy Corbyn's politics, he's quite charismatic, I think.
Yeah.
He's a good leader. I think he's a good face for his abhorrent policies. So they've got that going for them. It didn't help them that much in the last election. But Boris is a massive improvement on Theresa May in terms of charisma. He's just likeable. People call him Boris, not Johnson.
They get their knickers
Johnson.
in a twist about him calling him.
Because they know it's because he's likeable that people call him that. He's a character.
Even my auntie was like, "Are you supposed to call him Mr. Johnson?" Like, come on.
Yeah. No, he's Boris. He's our boy.
Bojo.
I don't like that so much, but he's the boy, I think. And
I think they're both very charismatic candidates. I think there's, as you say, I don't like the Labour policies. I think abhorrent. I think they mean well. I just think that abhorrent in the outcomes that actually come in the end.
I don't think they even mean well. But I know it's bold. I'm not going to go into that now. But
I'd like to ascribe to them, wrong-headedness rather than malice, perhaps. I'm sure there are some malicious actors in there. But yes, I think they both are very charismatic speakers. Both will fire up their bases. And I think that's mostly what they're aiming for. And as the manifestos are more about focusing at those swing areas and trying to get out the base, than they are potentially catering to the hard side of the other side that's never going to vote for you under any circumstances.
And they also don't need to appease the people who they know are going to vote for them. The people they can depend on in the safe seats. They don't have to. They're going to have to care about them at all.
Yeah, so I might have liked, low regulation Singapore on Thames sort of approach, but something that speaks to me as someone who's not going to vote for Jeremy Corbyn is something that might scare off a lot of people in that sort of middle ground. So there's obviously a lot of smart people writing these manifestos. They know the sort of key areas that they're going to be targeting, and I think that's what we see in these manifestos, going for those. Firing up those bases, getting them out to vote, and nods and winks to those middle ground voters. You might want to come across to us. I think that's the art in these manifestos.
Yeah. It's a shame that they spend so long writing them, because I think the only people who read them are people like us who are reporting on them. And the reporters themselves who just write up a 200-word article summarising the main policies.
It's good for at least 1 to 2 videos, so it's fine.
It's good. It's a shame they spend so much effort on them when I don't think people read them. Well, you've also we haven't mentioned Lib Dems or Greens at all. I think they're not even really worth mentioning.
I think for the sake of brevity, maybe not. But
there's a chance that Lib Dems will get in coalition with Labour.
Potentially, they might actually be the kingmaker. But I think, have Lib Dems essentially been Labour light? I haven't had a great deal of a chance to look at their manifestos.
Young Labour is definitely the impression I got. They want to legalise weed. That was they flat out come and said it. Cannabis is what the politicians call it.
Okay. So they got my brother on board.
Yeah, they've got a lot of these sort of very young, appealing policies, and I think that's probably pretty smart for them, trying to appeal to the people who are just registering, people who don't have any allegiance to any particular party. They're voting for the first time, and they're seeing these frumpy old men, Labour and Conservative, very much the parties of our parents.
I'm wondering, as we sort of discussed before we started, what the battle line will be in this election, because a lot of people were hyping up that it was going to be the Brexit election.
Yeah.
Right? It was going to be the Lib Dems had declared. They were quite smart in a way. They quickly got on, we're going to be the Remain party.
Yeah.
They saw that new dynamic
That is bold, by the way. I was
It
going
wa-
to
it
mention that. Like, they're not even going to have a second referendum.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
Remain.
So they said basically that if they get a majority, which is very unlikely, they won't even have a second referendum. They'll just cancel Brexit and
Yeah.
we'll just go on.
Just forget it ever happened.
Just forget it ever happened.
Forget about
So,
what 50% of the
yeah.
voters wanted.
Yeah, so, fine. I thought it was very odd. And the Tories, obviously, the party of Leave. So you had that dynamic that set up.
Yeah.
The interesting thing now will be, are people going to go back to Labour, who sort of jumped ship to the Lib Dems in the European elections? And is the election going to be decided on that old left versus right divide? Or is it going to be on
Leave and Remain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Labour, one of their faults has been that they haven't been clear about their Brexit position. Now they seem to be clear, but it's more convoluted, and it's going to be another 6 months to a year of messing around on Brexit. And will people want to stay with the Lib Dems who want to remain, or will they go back to Labour and say, okay, fine, we'll just have to deal with another referendum and another 6 months of messing around, but eventually we'll remain?
To me, it seems like a very bad move for Labour to be this neutral. Like this is the word.
So there's going to be an
neutral.
honest broker,
Yeah.
didn't he?
Yesterday and today, the word neutral has been all over the news. With Jeremy Corbyn says he's going to be neutral on Brexit, which seems just absurd to me. I mean, maybe I'm out of touch with what the voters want, but it seems that there's a lot of frustration around Brexit. People want it to be done with, or they just want to forget about it. And this idea that the minimum amount of time Labour is going to spend on it is 6 months. It's like he said, it's going to take at least 6 months.
More.
Yeah,
please no more.
And that's, obviously nobody's really expecting that 6 months from the day that Labour elected it's going to be over.
Yeah.
It's just going to keep getting dragged out, and I think that's not what people want it to be over one way or the other.
So it's going to be interesting how much those two divides. Obviously, it's going to be a sort of convolution of the two, but which one is more decides the result? Are the Brexit Party going to get a lot of votes in those Labour seats, for example?
That'll be interesting.
So it'll be interesting to see what the divide is. As I say, the Lib Dems were quite smart to say, "Ooh, we're going to jump and be Remain," because that boosted. They really boosted
it
themselves.
worked in the European elections.
But they seem to have receded from there, and it seems to, from what I've seen on Twitter, which is obviously a bit of a hellhole, it seems to have gone back to left versus right. We'll see how much that holds. See how much that holds.
It was interesting in the Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson debate how you could see that dynamic happening, where Boris Johnson wanted to keep the conversation on Brexit, saying we're the Brexit party, and Jeremy Corbyn hasn't even got an opinion about this. Right, they're being weaselly, and
then Corbyn, of course, wants to go back to the NHS. Stats are terrible. And
it's our NHS.
Our NHS. Yeah, God. 9 years of austerity. People at food banks and all this sort of stuff because that's what's going to fire up his base, and that's their stronger case. So makes sense.